Hello everyone, Fargast here, and today we take a look at the newly released Arthurian Hero Collectathon, King Arthur Legends Rise, the sponsor of today's video. I was contacted by Kabam Games about the possibility of making a video and reviewing my thoughts and first impressions of it, but here's the twist, this was 16 months ago. July 2023. At the time, and after 17 hours of in-game playtime getting a feel for the story, characters, combat, and progression, I was getting a grasp of the game but had several issues with the presentation and game balance, and I was pretty lukewarm about the experience in general, and to be completely honest, glad they didn't publish it in that state. I was not the only one though, as Kabam themselves clearly felt the same, and postponed the launch of the game by over a year. This is a turn-based gacha that is comparable to the likes of Honkai Star Rail and Raid Shadow Legends. If you're a regular viewer of my content and you've never heard of this game, a cursory glance at the gameplay may lead you to believe that this is just a derivative off of Raid. That game's aggressive marketing into meme status has tanked even my perception of these genres of games, but after giving this game another chance to prove itself and to change my mind, I'm happy to say that it did, and I have the hours to actually back that claim up. I've put in well over 40 hours between the beta and the public build, and getting to know this game's community as well, which was refreshing. In this video, I'll be referencing my prior experience with the game as a comparison, but off the bat, the changes they made to the game are very commendable, and their willingness to listen to player feedback in hindsight is very appreciated. I know you don't have a lot of context into much of what I'm saying at the moment when I say the beta, so let's just get into the game now, starting with the story and its setting. The premise of the game was what initially drew my interest in it to begin with. Admittedly, I'm not terribly familiar with Arthurian lore besides namesakes like King Arthur, Excalibur, Merlin, and so forth based on other games, books, and media I've experienced. Now personally, I don't know if the mythology had King Arthur rocking a fade and stubble and a very sharp jawline, but this game's characters and story are reimaginings of these mythological figures, and they all just happen to look like supermodels or have stunning beards, while maintaining the familiar beats of the mythos. Those well versed in the lore will quickly pick up on some immediate differences. Kay, Arthur's foster brother, is now his foster sister, for example. These differences are pretty minor before you really start to see the game dive deep into medieval fantasy with undead hordes, giant spiders, imps, various creatures, and fantasy races. Essentially, the groundwork and story is based on the mythos, but the story takes off from there. The story is about King Arthur rebuilding and defending Camelot after claiming Excalibur and becoming the rightful ruler of Britain, as he goes country to country aiding allies or pursuing villains like King Lot or Morgan the Witch. In the beta version, I was able to get to chapter 6 before running into a difficulty spike that greatly slowed me down, but in the new build, I've made it to chapter 8, and the story is suspenseful and fun to watch unfold, with 2 more chapters to go in its current version, and I'm actually pretty excited to see where things go from there. A huge step up from the beta though is the voice acting in the game. In the beta, the most you got was grunts and shouts in combat in the flavor of young man, young woman, gruff old man, that kind of thing. The main story voice acting is new, and it is a treat to listen to.
His daughter?
Your Majesty, I beg of you, show mercy upon my father, please.
Isolde, my dear, my crimes are too great for mercy.
Yes, I know my father's crimes cannot go unpunished, but he too was a victim of Lot's evil schemes. He was simply used.
The devastation he has wrought cannot be merely explained away by claiming he was deceived.
My father's true crime is that he failed to place his faith in Arthur as the High King of Britain.
That's right. What of King Ban? Don't you want to know why he lost his mind?
What are you saying? You know how Ban was driven mad?
Yes! Yes! If I tell you, will you spare my life?
Oui. You have moments more left as you speak. Perhaps more to follow if you speak the truth.
The voice performances are solid, but the big checkmark I give them is that they're all lore accurate, and you get accents from French, Irish, and English where it's needed. King Ban and King Bors rule in France, so they have French accents. Anguish and his daughter Isolde are from Ireland, so they're both given Irish accents. And all the pronunciations of unfamiliar terms and words are pronounced correctly here, as far as I can tell. The attention to detail is really impressive, and it's clear they put effort and soul into delivering a setting-accurate Arthurian tale. It did exceed my expectations. It's one of my actual favorite parts of the game, though I wish they would let you replay the story mode itself to experience it again instead of just the battles, because that does feel like a missed opportunity. This game is actually dark fantasy. They're not shy about showing blood or violence on screen, and a lot of creatures are grotesque, or creepy, or undead, or combinations of the three. Things can also get surprisingly gruesome, as there were several times in the story where I was like, oh, they're really putting the dark in dark fantasy here. I was not expecting so many fantastical races to be a part of the game, as I kind of expected it to be like just humans throughout. There are sorcerers and a lot of varied fighting styles on display, undead hordes, clicky spore-infested creatures, giant spiders, giant spider ladies, shark people, imps, fays, demons, ghouls and goblins, and all that. I can also appreciate its willingness to indulge in camp at times. There is a character who is very inspired from slasher horror movies, a blood-covered maiden with knives who, when attacks you, the camera literally changes perspective into first person as if you were her victim. It's morbidly charming and a sign that the game is willing to take liberties for the rule of cool, which I do respect. So yes, as far as the main story and character design goes, I think it's great. The codex in the character menu allows you to see every playable character's design and their weapons. With the help of Unreal Engine 5, you can view up close to cool yet grounded medieval character designs. And I'm not gonna lie, these characters just look sick. They look even better now since the beta, and I think they made some kind of overall graphical improvement because everything looks a lot shinier and cleaner as well. Every character in the game has 3 relics which represent Earth, Wind, and Fire, each having their own variations of that character's skills, but sometimes they're just the same. Alongside that, they're designed to represent their element. I'm happy they put attention to detail on all the different relics. There is a caveat to these character designs though. While they look good and are unique, which is further elevated by Unreal's graphics making these and the game in general look really good and high budget, attention is of course given to the legendary and rare heroes. The legendary, rare, and some uncommon characters are uniquely designed and have story or side story relevance in the game itself. The rest of the uncommons and commons though, they're not treated to the same level. I don't know if this is like an industry standard for commons and uncommons and other games kind of like this, but a lot of them are recycled enemy and NPC models with a name, and that's basically it. It's unfortunate because even though these characters will understandably be more niche and more situational combat-wise, some of them, like Aaron, Jack, or Jarrett, are useful units to have depending on the dungeon or monster you're facing. At least they were in the beta, I'm not sure if they are now. But they're all generic models. I can understand them not being as uniquely or interestingly designed as the legendary, rare, or otherwise plot-relevant characters, but not even a unique face model or color palette is just a letdown. They're not meant to be the focus, and realistically they're situational for combat at best, but still, it's something I'd like to point out. Finally, let's get into the gameplay. As a gacha game, it comes with a $0 entry fee. But the question that every potential gacha player wants to know is that, is this game F2P friendly? As of playing right now, I'm not exactly sure what the legendary pull rate is, but the pity rate is 60 pulls, and there are multiple banners at a time. The difference from the beta is that now weapon banners are completely separate from character banners. There are 3 banners for the 3 individual elemental weapon types. There are 2 rate-up banners, a permanent legendary banner, a permanent standard banner that gives you free summons, and every 10 summons on every other banner that isn't the standard one guarantees you a rare. There are a lot of ways to get gems for rate-up banners, which gems can be also used for other things like replenishing stamina or purchasing things, and there are also ways to get summon tickets for other banners. So they give you options to summon, but it also feels like I don't personally get too many chances to summon on rate-up banners without grinding, since each summon is an earned summon ticket or 150 gems. You'll also notice that King Arthur Legends Rise is a bit more forthcoming when it comes to purchasing with real money, as you get notified on screen pretty often with pop-up deals, but the game does give you a lot of ways to earn summon tickets of all kinds and gems for rate-up banners, so it does feel like a slow burn for F2P summons. You get rewarded well for working and chipping away at the Royal Road and completing the story and adventure missions, and currently the Royal Roads all end with a legendary hero summon, but it will take time to get there. Which is good, because the majority of your team will be rares, and thankfully the new hero balance makes it so rares are very useful and strong. I'm an F2P player through and through, and I do feel confident that my roster of rares will do fine work for the type of player that I am, and the type of player that I think most of the people watching this video are. Someone who wants to experience the story and characters while slowly and steadily reaching my max level, and kind of optimizing my characters as I go, and just kind of learning how the game works without trying to like sweat and like earn the most optimal equipment or big numbers or whatever. Indeed, the game has vastly improved with hero balance since the beta. In the public release, they give you Morgan, a legendary, to everyone after 10 summons guaranteed. They also give you Turin, a rare healer, for free. Tristan is another legendary hero given to you after you progress in the main story, and you start the game off with Arthur and Kay, who are also 2 rares. The thing that I really appreciate about the balance changes is that the game actually gives you very solid characters. Kay in the beta, from what I remember, was just kind of okay, and I remember Tristan actually being pretty bad, and Morgan was not free. Morgan is just an incredibly strong character in every mode now, with high damage output and debuffs. Kay is also extremely good. She has fantastic AoE with her default wind weapon, and Turin is a very, very good healer / support that can help you in basically any mode and works very well with Morgan in a team composition to boot. Tristan is also quite good for boss content. Arthur is okay still, but he's still I think better than before, but I find him more useful with his wind relic for his attack speed boost, support, and single hit damage. When you are starting the early stages of team composition, Morgan, Turin, and Kay as the base of your team do a lot for you. They're all useful for all content in the game, and they even synergize well together. It's very refreshing to see these characters be so helpful, because one of your first goals will be to progress through the story to unlock more and more areas of your estate. The hub area of the game where you'll be summoning, buying items and equipment, forging and enhancing equipment, grinding character progression materials, and so on. A problem that the beta had was that since your free units were not as balanced as they are now and you didn't have Morgan, the story had a noticeable difficulty spike in chapter 6. That's what I remember from the first script of this video. I'm not sure if the team rebalanced the story missions to curve its difficulty more smoothly, but I'm really happy that the story mode feels way more balanced thanks to the changes they made. Gone are the days of Anguish being just ridiculously better than everyone else for actually no reason. Though nowadays I think he's pretty niche from what I've heard. Okay, so we're at the actual combat part, and I'm not sure if I should have mentioned this earlier in the video, but there's going to be a timestamp anyway. So what is the combat like? If you've played Honkai Star Rail or Raid Shadow Legends, the turn-based RPG combat ought to feel familiar. Each character has 3 abilities. These vary depending on which elemental weapon you have for said character, and you have to weigh the risk of an ability's vigor cost, the shared 5-point gauge for the entire party on the bottom right, with its effect and practicality in battle, whether that's to global heal, buff, deal single enemy damage, AoE damage, that kind of thing. Things start to get more complicated and nuanced when enemies and bosses become more complicated with shields that are better handled with multi-hit moves like Kay's 5-hit dagger hits or Tristan's boosted damage on shields. Some characters like Morgan and Turin benefit from fighting at night, which becomes relevant with the in-combat day/night cycle. You can't really spam high vigor cost abilities because you'll need to economize vigor with turn order to make sure that you can heal and buff your allies before the next enemy turn. The nice thing about games like this is that there's a lot of room to explore for team composition, and if you're lacking in an element to address the elemental triangle this game has, where fire beats wind, ice beats fire, and wind beats ice, you can swap out one hero for another. For example, when I pulled Gareth, a physical damage and stun specialist that starts out with her ice weapon, I quickly was able to solve an issue that I was having against a fight made up of a lot of fire enemies. Then I summoned Baldwin, who has incredible defensive utility and greatly benefits my otherwise fragile team, who inevitably replaced Gareth. The gameplay and depth is quite engaging so far, and it is rewarding to actually start reading skill descriptions and understanding how they can be useful in battle, unlike if I were to go back to Fire Emblem Heroes right now and I would not be able to understand literally anything. Yeah. Because these genres of games always let you start by just hitting auto battle and fast forwarding until that strategy doesn't work anymore, though this feature is great regardless, there are in fact many features of this game that respect your time. The story missions, the boss battles, and event content get progressively harder, so you will start to need to make adjustments to enemy attack patterns and statuses they're afflicting you with, elemental types to optimize damage inflicted against the enemy, and to reduce incoming damage. One thing that honestly does concern me is the artifact system. I'm not really keen on these systems in all these kinds of games, but if you're used to main stats and sub-stats and grinding for equipment, then you're gonna feel right at home here. Overall, King Arthur Legends Rise has been a fun experience so far, and I'm honestly impressed with the dedication that Kabam Games have to improving the game since beta, where I was pretty lukewarm on the experience after about 17 hours of gameplay. The game does feel F2P friendly as far as summons are concerned right now. You just need to work slow and steady for the pulls. I also made a clan, which I don't really know how it works yet so far, but I get rewards and EXP buffs for completing the story, so you can join that too if you want. It's called Twin Jewels. You can get this game on PC and mobile for free. If the aesthetics, setting, and gameplay suit your preference, you can give the game a try using my link below.